The Sigil of Shadows. I awoke to a chilling silence, the kind that presses against your eardrums with an almost physical weight. My eyes adjusted to the dim light of dawn, and that's when I saw them, symbols, archaic and sinister, scrawled across the walls in a substance dreadfully reminiscent of blood. I reached out, trembling, to erase the marks, but they only proliferated, spreading like a contagion across the once pristine walls of my bedroom. The symbols pulsed with an otherworldly energy, and a cold dread settled in my bones. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching me, sentient in a way that defied logic. The air grew thick, charged with a static that made the hairs on my neck stand on end. I tried to call out, but my voice was a mere whisper, lost in the oppressive silence. As the symbols continued to multiply, I noticed they were forming a pattern, converging towards the mirror hanging opposite my bed. The glass surface began to shimmer, and within it, I glimpsed another world, a shadowy reflection of my room, distorted and dark. A figure stood there, its features obscured, yet its gaze bore into me with an intensity that felt like a physical force. I stumbled back, my heart racing, as the figure in the mirror reached out, its hand pressing against the glass. A crack appeared, spider webbing across the surface, and a low hum filled the room, growing louder until it was all I could hear. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter, and the air turned frigid. In a desperate attempt to escape the madness, I flung open the door to my room, only to find the hallway beyond transformed. The familiar pictures and furniture were gone, replaced by more of those accursed symbols and an impenetrable darkness that seemed to swallow the light. I turned back to the mirror, and the figure was closer now, its hand pushing through the glass, reaching for me. I could see its eyes, black voids that promised an eternity of torment. I knew then that I had to find a way to break the connection, to banish the entity before it could enter my world. With each step I took, the floorboards groaned, and the walls seemed to close in around me. I had to keep moving, to find the source of this nightmare. But as I ventured deeper into the darkness, I realized that the house was no longer my own. It was a labyrinth, a trap set by whatever malevolent force had invaded my home. The house was a maze of shifting corridors, each turn leading me deeper into the abyss. The symbols on the walls pulsed in rhythm with my heartbeat, their crimson hue casting eerie shadows. I stumbled upon a room, a forgotten chamber that had no place in my memory. Its walls bore the same symbols, but here they were etched into the floor, forming a circle. In the center of that circle stood an old wooden table, its surface marred by age and neglect. On it lay a tarnished silver knife, its blade curved like a crescent moon. I hesitated, my fingers brushing against the cold metal. The symbols whispered secrets, urging me to take up the blade, to cut away the veil between worlds. The mirror in my bedroom had been a gateway, a portal through which the entity sought entry. But why? What did it want? I traced the symbols with trembling hands, my mind racing. The answer lay within the house, hidden in the very walls that now threatened to consume me. As I explored further, I discovered more rooms, each a tableau of horror. In one, a child's nursery lay frozen in time, the crib draped in cobwebs. In another, a study filled with dusty tomes revealed cryptic incantations. The symbols were everywhere, imprinted on the pages like a curse. I read aloud, my voice echoing through the empty room, and the walls trembled in response. Outside, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows that danced across the walls. The symbols writhed, their movements synchronized with the dying light. I had to find a way to break the connection, to sever the bond that held the entity captive. But how? The silver knife beckoned, its blade gleaming with malevolence. I gripped it tightly, my resolve hardening. If the symbols were the key, then perhaps they could also be the lock. I traced the circle on the floor, my blood mingling with the ancient markings. The blade cut deep, and pain flared through my palm. But I persisted, my desperation driving me forward. The room quaked, and the mirror shattered, shards of glass raining down like tears. The figure in the reflection screamed, a sound that scraped against my sanity. It was close now, almost free. I pressed the knife to the symbols, carving new lines, intersecting the old. The walls bled, and the air grew thick with anticipation. And then, as the last stroke fell, the symbols flared, blinding in their intensity. The room collapsed, folding in on itself. I was falling, weightless, through a void that swallowed me whole. The entity's laughter echoed in my ears, mocking and triumphant. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my room, the symbols gone. But the mirror remained shattered, and the figure still lingered, half-formed. It whispered promises of pain and madness, of a world beyond the veil. And as I stared into those black voids, I knew I had only scratched the surface of the horror that awaited. The shattered mirror haunted my dreams, its jagged edges slicing through my subconscious. Each night, I returned to that forsaken room, the symbols etched into my mind like a curse. The entity, half-formed, insatiable, whispered secrets, promising forbidden knowledge in exchange for my sanity. I sought answers beyond the veil. The old librarian, Mrs. Hawthorne, held the key. She lived in a crumbling house on the outskirts of town, surrounded by overgrown hedges and rumors of witchcraft. Her eyes, milky with age, bore witness to forgotten truths. I knocked on her door, my heart pounding. "Child," she rasped, "you seek the truth, but truth has a price." I nodded, desperate. The symbols, the mirror. "Tell me." Mrs. Hawthorne led me to her study, shelves sagging under ancient tomes. She traced the symbols on a yellowed page, her fingers trembling. "The sigil of shadows," she said. "A gateway to realms beyond. The entity seeks release, and you. I'm the unwitting key," I finished. She nodded. "To banish it, you must complete the ritual. The knife, the blood, it binds the entity. But beware, child. The abyss hungers." I returned home, the silver knife heavy in my hand. The symbols pulsed, urging me to finish what I'd started. The mirror awaited, its shards still sharp. I carved new lines, intersecting the old, my blood mingling with the ancient ink. The room trembled, and the air thickened. The figure in the reflection writhed, its eyes aflame. "Release me," it hissed. "The world beyond awaits." I hesitated. What lay beyond? Salvation or damnation? The house groaned, walls cracking. The abyss yawned wider, pulling me in. I stepped through the shattered mirror, my body dissolving into shadows. The other side was a nightmare, a twisted reflection of reality. The entity stood before me, fully formed now, its eyes devouring my soul. "Welcome," it said, voice echoing through eternity. "Why?" I asked. "Why me?" It laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You were chosen, the one who woke the sigil. Now, you'll be the vessel." I fought back, but the abyss swallowed me whole. Memories unraveled, sanity fraying. I glimpsed other worlds, screaming souls, forgotten gods, and endless voids. The entity merged with me, our minds entwined. And now, as I write these words, I am both human and shadow. The symbols sear my flesh, etching their truth. The abyss beckons, and I am its harbinger. The mirror remains shattered, but the entity whispers. It wants out. It wants to consume. And so, I pen this warning, a plea to those who stumble upon the sigil of shadows. Beware the crimson awakening. For once you see beyond, there is no turning back. Story 2. The Unseen Light. I had always found comfort in the soft glow of my daughter's nightlight. It was a beacon of security, a silent guardian against the dark imaginings of the night. But recently, the light began to flicker, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the walls of her room like twisted marionettes. Each night, the flickering grew more pronounced, more erratic, as if conducting an otherworldly Morse code. One evening, as the shadows swayed with a frenetic urgency, I decided to investigate. The bulb should have been hot to the touch, yet it was cold, and to my horror, it was completely unscrewed. I stood there, staring at the bulb in my hand, while the light continued to pulse. It was impossible, yet the glow remained, unanchored by its filament. The air grew thick with a chilling silence, broken only by the soft hum of the persistent light. I called out to my daughter, but no reply came. The The silence seemed to swallow the sound of my voice. With trepidation, I turned back to her room, only to find her bed empty, the covers thrown back in haste. I searched the house, calling her name with increasing desperation. The light from her room seemed to stretch out, tendrils of illumination reaching into the dark corners of the hallway. It was as if the house itself had become alive, watching me with unseen eyes. As I passed by the mirror in the hall, I caught a glimpse of movement. I spun around, but there was nothing, no one. The reflection showed the hallway behind me, bathed in the unnatural light from my daughter's room. Yet, something was off. The angles were wrong, the shadows cast by the flickering light didn't match, and for a fleeting moment, I thought I saw a figure standing just out of sight. I rushed back to her room, the light now pulsing in a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. The shadows on the wall coalesced into a form, tall and thin, with elongated limbs that stretched out towards me. I could feel a presence, something ancient and malevolent, lurking in the periphery of my vision. As I stood frozen, a whisper brushed against my ear, a voice not heard but felt, "Find her before we do." The room grew colder, the light dimmer, and the shadows hungrier. I knew then that this was no mere electrical fault. Something had been unleashed, something that dwelled in the flickering silence. The following night, I sat by my daughter's bedside, my eyes fixed on the flickering light. The room had transformed into a sepulchre of secrets, its walls pulsating with an unseen energy. I wondered if I was losing my mind, if the shadows were mere tricks of the imagination. But the whispers, the insidious, barely audible murmurs, were real. "Find her before we do," the voice had said. Who were they? What did they want with my daughter? I had no answers, only questions that gnawed at my sanity. The light continued its erratic dance, casting elongated shapes that seemed to writhe in agony. I couldn't tear my gaze away. My daughter slept soundly, oblivious to the malevolence that clung to the room. Her innocence was a fragile shield against the encroaching darkness. I considered waking her, taking her far away from this cursed house, but something held me back. A compulsion, an unyielding force, kept me rooted to the spot. As the night wore on, the whispers grew louder. They slithered through the cracks in the walls, worming their way into my mind. I tried to block them out, humming a lullaby, but the words twisted, morphing into a sinister chant. Unscrewed, unscrewed, unscrewed. I ventured into the hallway, the light following me like a faithful specter. The mirror mocked me, reflecting a distorted version of myself. My eyes were hollow, my skin pallid. I looked like a man haunted by his own fears. And perhaps I was. The house seemed to breathe, a slow, deliberate inhalation. The walls pulsed, as if harboring secrets too terrible to reveal. I pressed my ear against the wood, listening for any clue. The whispers intensified, an army of voices overlapping, urging me to find her. But where? The light bulb remained unscrewed, its cold glass mocking my futile attempts to understand. I retraced my steps, searching every corner, every closet. The air grew colder, and I glimpsed fleeting shapes, shadows that flitted just beyond my vision. They hungered for something, something my daughter possessed. Back in her room, I knelt by her bed. Her face was serene, untouched by the malevolence that clung to the walls. I whispered her name, hoping she would wake, but she remained in slumber. The light pulsed, its rhythm matching the beat of my heart. And then, in the corner of my eye, I saw it, the faintest outline of a door. A door that hadn't been there before. It stood at the far end of the room, its edges blurred, as if existing in two worlds simultaneously. The whispers converged, urging me toward it. I hesitated, torn between fear and curiosity. But my daughter's safety outweighed all else. I stepped toward the door, the light now blinding, searing my retinas. And as I reached for the handle, the whispers coalesced into a single word, spoken with chilling clarity: home. The door stood before me, its edges wavering like a mirage. I hesitated, my fingers trembling as they brushed against the cold metal handle. The whispers had grown louder, urging me onward, promising answers beyond the threshold. I turned the handle, and the door swung open, revealing a darkness deeper than any night. It swallowed me whole, pulling me into its abyss. The air changed, thickening with a scent I couldn't place, rotting leaves, damp earth, and something else, something ancient. I stepped through, and the door closed behind me, sealing off the world I knew. The light from my daughter's room vanished, replaced by a faint glow that emanated from the walls themselves. The corridor stretched endlessly, its walls pulsing like a heartbeat. I walked, guided by instinct, driven by the need to find her. The whispers followed, no longer mere murmurs but distinct voices. They spoke of forgotten rituals, of bargains struck in desperation, of a hunger that transcended time. I stumbled upon a chamber, a circular room with walls adorned in faded symbols. The light here was stronger, revealing intricate patterns etched into the stone. In the center stood a well, a black void that seemed to reach into infinity. The whispers converged, urging me to peer inside. I leaned over the edge, and my reflection stared back, a man hollowed by fear, eyes wide with revelation. The well was a conduit, a gateway to realms beyond our understanding. "She is the key," the whispers said. "The unscrewed light, the fracture in reality. She can bridge the worlds." I understood then. My daughter was no ordinary child. She carried a secret, a lineage older than memory. The flickering light was a beacon, drawing the unseen toward her. And now, I stood at the crossroads, faced with a choice: protect her or unleash forces beyond reckoning. I retraced my steps, back to the door. But it wouldn't open. The whispers laughed, mocking my feeble attempts. "You've crossed the threshold," they said. "There's no going back." I pressed my palm against the door, feeling its ancient pulse. My daughter's name echoed through the darkness, a plea, a prayer. I closed my eyes, willing her safety, her return. And then, the door yielded, swinging open once more. The room beyond was different, a reflection of my daughter's, yet twisted. The night light flickered, casting shadows that danced in defiance of physics. And there she stood, my daughter, her eyes wide, her small hand reaching out. "Daddy," she whispered. I found the light. But it wasn't the same child. Her skin was translucent, her form ethereal. She stepped toward me, and I saw it, the well, its darkness seeping into her veins. She was the bridge, the unscrewed light, the convergence of worlds. I held her close, tears blurring my vision. "We'll find a way back," I promised. "We'll break the curse." But she shook her head. "It's too late," she said. "They're coming." And as the whispers swirled around us, I glimpsed them, the ancient beings, hungry and vengeful. They reached for my daughter, their fingers elongated, their eyes voids of malice. I clung to her, refusing to let go. But the darkness swallowed us, and the room collapsed, folding in on itself. We fell, spiraling through dimensions, until all that remained was the flickering light, the unscrewed bulb, the fractured reality. And there, in the void, my daughter's voice echoed, fading into eternity, home. The end. Subscribe for more. Thank you.